Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Amplify Your Business. Today, I'm talking to Brice Ulrey. He is a partner over at Opkalla, which is an IT company out of the United States of America. Welcome to the show today, Brice.
Yeah, thanks, Lance. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so I was just relating to you how this has been just a day from a cold hell here for myself because we're freezing our butts off in minus 27 degrees Celsius weather, and you're down in North Carolina, I think you said, right?
75 degrees right now
Yeah,
in North
yeah, yeah.
Carolina. Yeah.
It's not fair, man. It's totally not fair. But anyway, it's great that we can connect
Yeah,
across all these miles and have a conversation about entrepreneurship. And so,
for sure.
before we get into what it is that your company does, I would love to hear what your thoughts are in terms of what are three things that every entrepreneur should know or would be important for them to understand as they venture into their entrepreneurial journeys themselves.
Yeah, I think number one is I feel like every entrepreneur has to have a level of sales ability, right?
Mm,
So the ability to sell what you're looking for or what your company does, what you're trying to solve for. So whether that's educate yourself through books or grab a mentor, just a level of sales acumen.
yep.
I highly recommend. I learned how to sell through the Sandler. You can't teach a kid to ride a bike at a seminar book. It was written
Yeah.
in the 60s, but I still think that some of the fundamentals of sales are still good there. So that would be
Totally.
number one.
Yeah.
Number two, I would say, the grass isn't always greener. So what I mean by that is starting a company and working for a startup and doing these things, it's hard and it's stressful. And if you have a really good career and you have a good leadership team and you have a team that you really like, really think long and hard, right, about doing this. We went without paychecks for I think a year, right?
Yeah.
So it's not always greener. And if you're in a good situation, really think about it. It's entrepreneurship, I think, is really glorified in
Mm.
in today's culture, and rightfully so. There's a lot of very positive things, but I also think it's okay to work for a great company and have a great team and leadership team. So, and then number three is work hard, and what I mean by that is be able to look yourself in the mirror at the end of the day, knowing that you really gave everything you had that day from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. A lot of people say, man, I worked really hard today, but did you move the needle? Did you either make the company money? Did you add substantial value to the organization? Whatever your role is, right? Did you really give it your all? Because if you can really put in, sometimes it's more than 40 hours, but if you can really put in 40 solid hours, I think you can really do something special if you're honest with yourself about the work you're doing.
Yeah, I love all three that you've mentioned, and the last two are probably unique. So we've done, I don't know, 220 interviews, and I've never had anybody talk about the grass isn't always greener, as clearly and concisely as what you have. And then the working hard part. I mean, obviously, there's been other entrepreneurs that have kind of touched on that a bit, but I really love what you're talking about in terms of the moving the needle aspect. If you can look yourself in the mirror and really can you answer that question, and it's about that focus on the things that are going to grow your business.
Right.
And we have to have that as entrepreneurs, so much more so than as an employee obviously does, because it's so critical that the hours that we're spending are really focused on that goal. And I think it's so easy for us to get caught up in the busyness of just being busy. And one of
Yeah.
my mentors, long-term mentors, many years ago when I was first starting my business, he was calling it a crisis of busyness, where everybody that he talked to, he'd say like, how are things going? Oh, I'm just so busy, right? And busy doing this, busy doing that. And what he was coaching me on is it doesn't matter how busy you are, you just have to be really effective with that time, because that's the most precious thing that you as a founder or you as a partner can inject into the business, is the focus on really moving that business forward. So
Absolutely.
thank you for sharing that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
you're
really
welcome.
great. And this is one of the things that we were talking about before we hit the record button, is that you are a partner of four, I think you said, right?
Yeah.
So there's four of you that are focused on the growth of this business, and you guys have seen some real exponential growth over the years, triple digit percentage increases each and every year over the last 4 years. You're not doing that by just being busy. You're doing that as a team and really focusing on the things that need to be focused on as that leadership group.
Yeah.
So how do you
For
guys
sure.
do that, as four individuals to come together and really apply that principle across the four of you?
Yeah.
Because I know in a lot of partnerships, and we haven't had this conversation, so I don't know where this is going to go, but I
Sure.
know a lot of partnerships where there's there's guys that are just really good practitioners, and there's guys who are really good at the strategic aspects of the business. Do you guys have a blend of those personalities, or is everybody coming at it really from that real strong strategic uh,
Yeah.
movement forward within the business?
So the three of the partners, me, Aaron, and Jim, we all come from a sales background, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have a problem in the business, right? It's like, okay, go sell more, right? Because
Yeah,
then we'll generate income, which we'll use to pay to find a solution to the problem potentially. So when things got tough, we just focused on adding value and selling and meeting with clients and sharing our story and generating revenue, right? And our
yeah,
fourth partner, Steve, he's like the cornerstone of the organization. So he's the catch-all solution rock star, right? So the three of us, especially in the beginning, the three of us were moving 100 miles an hour trying to feed our families, right? And
yeah,
business problems popped up. So
yeah,
if me or Aaron or Jim, if we had to solve that, then we're not selling, right? Because we're over here having meetings and trying to figure out how to solve this. Steve would grab problems and just go solve them so we could go sell, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
we started with me, Jim, and Aaron, the three of us, and then Steve came on shortly thereafter because we knew we needed somebody to just help stabilize the organization. Um, and Steve's been, instrumental in our growth for sure. But
yeah, yeah,
what's fueled the growth? Back to your question is, Steve being there to help solve problems for us as they arise. He's our chief operating officer. He does a phenomenal job, and then me, Aaron, and Jim are just now leading a sales team, but continuing to sell ourselves. So,
yeah.
um, yeah,
Yeah, and I can't wait to dig into that a little bit more, because I come from a sales background as well, and so it's always push hard on the sales, but operationally the operations have to be there in order to fulfill on all the promises that we're making on the sales side of
exactly.
things, and
Yeah,
so yeah, it can catch up real quick, especially if you got three guys, three of the four founders who are out there doing the selling. So yeah, I can see
yeah,
why the growth is so rapid, but I can also see how operationally Steve has probably had some time moments there where he's like, "Whoa, guys, just hold on here a second."
for sure.
Okay, so let's get into what Opkalla is all about. What is it that Opkalla does? Then, what problems are you guys solving?
So we're an IT trusted advisory firm, and we live in the IT reseller space. We do things a little bit differently. So we solve the problem of biased agendas in the space. So
Mm,
we're vendor neutral, and we have over 300 different providers in our portfolio
wow.
versus, the average VAR may have 20 to 30 providers.
Hmm,
So typically in our space, each solution that solves a business problem has one provider to solve it. So, traditional VARs do as much business as they can with that provider to get back in incentives, bonuses, rebates. It's all about do as much as you can with one company to achieve more money for your business to then go and grow, right?
yep.
Our business model is that our only bias is based on customer satisfaction for a
Hmm,
particular provider. And what we'll do is we'll bring in 2 to 3 providers to the table for our customers to evaluate, right? Rather than just one. So there is a lack of loyalty to providers in the sense of it's a love-hate relationship at times, right?
Yeah.
But we feel that if we can sit on the client side of the table more during evaluations, it will gain more trust from our clients, which will help grow the company and make it more successful. So
Yep.
that's how we're different. I mean, we resell IT solutions, right? But
Yep.
we kind of flipped it on its head a little bit.
Yeah. So just to walk through kind of the typical position where you find yourself in, you're talking to some company. They are maybe looking for an IT security solution, or they maybe
Yep.
are looking for a new ERP system, or uh, customer management solution, or all sorts of different kinds of IT type technologies. You would be able to have that conversation with them and say, hey, this is what we would recommend, or these would be the three that we'd recommend based off of the other tech elements that you've got within your stack. And so then you would help facilitate then that integration into their system then, right?
Correct. Yeah. So if we take like a security solution, for example,
Yep.
what are you trying to solve for? What's the business problem that you need IT to solve for? Well,
Yep.
I don't have enough security on my endpoints, laptops, cell phones, tablets, whatever. I don't feel I have enough security. Okay. Then I'd gather information. What have you used in the past? What are some must-haves, nice-to-haves? Tell me more about your organization. What do you do? Tell me more about budget. That can be a tough conversation, right? Well, if I tell you whatever number I tell you, that's what you'll sell me. It's like, well,
Hmm.
we're a little bit different. You got to trust me. Like, I just want to know what the top end is, because again, if you can only afford a Honda Accord, we don't need to waste our time looking at Teslas, looking at Mercedes, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
let's focus on what's the top line budget, right? Where can we go from there?
Yep.
Then again, I'll take those requirements and I'll find at least two, hopefully three providers that can fit that niche specific to that organization for that business problem. And then during the negotiations, we'll sit metaphorically on the client side of the table and help them evaluate after the call. Hey, what did you think? I didn't like them. Okay, no problem. On to the next one. And again, we're facilitating the scheduling. We're facilitating, the next steps. We're helping negotiate the contract if needed. Once they determine a solution's the best fit for them, if they ask for our input, we'll give it. If not, they say, hey, we're going to go this direction. We stay involved in the process through implementation. While we're not implementing ourselves, we just ensure that we're there as an additional line of support, just ensuring that it goes well.
Yeah, to help guide them through it, right? Because there's a lot of nuances to those deals, the integrations, and there's things that are going to pop up as a guy who's gone through it with our company multiple times that pop up, and it's like, okay, well, this is what the vendor was saying, or what we thought the vendor was saying was going to happen, and then it's just like, no, at the end of it, it didn't quite turn out to be that way, and which is really time consuming and potentially costly, because you get a point then where it's like, okay, there's no turning back because you've invested so much into going down that road, and now you're in a place where it just doesn't quite fit right? So now you're having to do a bunch of workarounds and so on with it. And so you guys know all those pitfalls because you're familiar with the solutions that each one of these 300 providers are providing as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And we've been through other implementations, right? We've seen what's possible, what can happen, how do we set this up for success, right? So, and we use our scale. We operate a lot in the 200 to 2,000. We have many clients above the 2,000 employee space size, but we give clients, with 400 or 500 employees, more of a voice, more leverage, more of a voice to really have a good experience and get good pricing and use what we know to make the right decision versus, what would it look like today, right? Okay, I'd call 5 different providers. They'd all tell me they can do everything. I'm a 1-2 man IT shop, and I'm having to decide okay, everyone's telling me they can do everything. What do you do with that, right? Just take the cheapest price? Do you take somewhere in the middle? Who do I like the most, right? Some people get stuck in that, right? Well, I like this salesperson the most. It's like, that's good. It's great that you like them, but is it really the best fit? We're finding, especially, I mean, the market's telling us too, like with our growth, excuse me, with our growth, that we're adding value in that conversation, right? To that unbiased, we've been there before. Let me tell you why this is a good fit or why it isn't.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that what you guys are providing is just such a key service because as a business owner myself, and the tech stack that we, as we continue to grow, is getting more and more complicated,
Yeah.
and the integration of that is becoming more
Yep.
complicated. But the options are also seemingly unlimited almost, and it's so hard to navigate and really to figure out which ones are the ones that are going to match up best to what our needs are because exactly what you said, every one of them tells me how they can solve it all,
Yeah.
right? Like they are the perfect fit for it, and it's really difficult to compare apples to apples, and you just don't want to be making that mistake because it can just take so much energy and momentum out of the company if you're trying to deal with the implementation of tech stack that is just not well suited or not optimized or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we had an IT leader. We had a sales kickoff in January, and we had an IT leader speak to our team. What's important? How
mhm.
do you like to go through sales engagements? And the thing that stuck out to me the most is he said it's not as much about price or how great the solution is. It's how well does it integrate in my
Yep.
current business and the current tools I have. That's like number one because they've made these strategic investments.
Yep.
How does something seamlessly integrate? So
Yep.
that was pretty eye-opening to us too, to go, well, hang on a second. We really need to focus on current tech stack. How do things tie together across everything and,
Yeah.
and making sure that it's the right fit.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. And I'd imagine our audience is going to be able to relate to this really well. So I wouldn't be surprised if you get a few people reaching out to you just to ask for a little bit of advice after this.
We're here to help.
Yeah.
Doesn't cost anything to talk to us for sure. We're happy to talk.
Excellent. And we'll share your contact information at the end. So if anybody does want to reach out to you, they can do so at that point. So let's talk a little bit about your journey, though, as an entrepreneur. So this is your first venture. You got started
That's right.
about 4 years ago.
Hmm.
And like I said, started with three partners, ended up adding the fourth one pretty quick.
Yes.
And then you guys have just been experiencing all this growth over that time period. What do you attribute the biggest, I guess, reasons for the growth that you are finding beyond the fact that, I mean, you guys started as three sales people with a real heavy sales focus, and so obviously you're going to know how to get out there and really pitch the services, and you saw what the needs were, and so obviously there was a market fit for what you guys are trying to sell. But beyond that, what are really the secrets to your guys' growth over the last 4 years?
Um, going back to the three things. So sales focused, one, really being able to be honest with each other about hard work. I mean,
Hmm.
those are the basic fundamental things. But getting into our business, right? The the three of us, the three initial founders, the people that are selling, we came from the traditional reseller space, right?
Okay.
And the traditional space has been the same for a long time. So especially around the IT hardware business, right? So companies needed help, they bought hardware, they put hardware up, then this thing called the cloud comes along, right? And goes, well, hold on a second, you don't need all this hardware, but it's been the same way, and these massive resellers have been having to shift to this cloud OpEx, not CapEx type venture. We saw where the market was going. So we knew cloud and security were going to be growing substantially. Um, and the leaders at our former organizations just wanted to sell hardware and wanted to continue down the hardware path
Hmm.
at a pace that we felt, hey, we want to do something a little bit different. Now, Opkalla still sells hardware. number one. So we still sell hardware if you need it, right?
Yep.
But the biggest thing is we wanted to build a reseller that was vendor neutral, cloud first, security focused. We knew security was booming. We saw it. We wanted to really focus on that. And again, be vendor neutral versus the companies that had 10-year plus relationships with very successful large scale OEMs in the space that they had very strong relationships with. We didn't have those, right?
Yep.
So we just thought we could do it better with a cloud first approach, potentially, lower overhead and kind of start in the cloud and know like, hey, this is where we're starting. This is how the financials of the business will work and stay lean and operate with that.
Yeah, and I'm curious because so you guys started this business just briefly before COVID hit and the big lockdown, everybody working remotely and so on, which created, from an IT perspective, a very different challenge, I suppose, or a much larger challenge. I think all that hit at the same time with the remote workers, and security was a
Absolutely, yeah.
big thing and so on. Now, I'd love to hear your perspective. How much did COVID attribute to the success? Like, what was easier because of COVID in the growth of your business, and maybe what was more difficult for you guys as a new company growing
Yeah.
yourselves through COVID?
So yeah, we started May, June 2019. I got married February 8th, 2020. The COVID is in China, was all over the TVs at the rehearsal dinner, and we're like, oh wow, that's crazy. Wonder what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Then March Madness got canceled, and then it was like, okay, this is a scary thing. So, from there, IT leaders were calling us going, hey, I just had 500 people in an office are now working from home. I need help, right?
Yeah.
We did a lot of cloud hosted unified communications so that people could collaborate. Teams was kind of this, Microsoft Teams was this very new thing.
Yep.
They were a little slower to the market. Companies like Ring Central, Zoom, Vonage, 8x8, their stock prices exploded because everybody had to talk to their fellow coworkers using these platforms. So let's take Zoom, for example. So sold a lot of Zoom. Video. Hey, I need a phone on my computer. Like I don't have my desk phones at work. How do I call out? Here's a soft phone, right? So it was a lot of how do these massive organizations that used to just go in the office every day and meet, collaborate remotely. So we helped with that a lot. Then there was this big push around security, right? Got all these people all over. Maybe they're VPNing into our environment. We don't know who's on the other end. We think it's our employee, but they're kind of coming through into our network. How do we protect that, right? How do we know it's them?
Yeah.
We did a lot of VPN replacement. We did a lot of MFA multi-factor, right? Like prove it's you, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of hardware, right? Like, hey, I've got a desktop at the office now. What do I use? So we did a lot of that. But it was really around protecting the organization with remote users and helping companies collaborate that were not remote beforehand. That's
So you
how
had
we grew during COVID.
so you had the flood of demand for that very specific kind of things
Correct.
that so many companies were in the need for, and so you guys were ideally positioned to fulfill that, which
Yep.
I'd imagine is just great, as you're starting your business, to have that kind of occur in a way. What was more difficult for your business, like the growth of your business, because of COVID?
We were still building a brand. So we were still
Yeah.
Brice, Aaron, Jim, Steve. You work for Opkalla, like what is that? It doesn't matter. I like you, I'll buy from you. But what ended up happening is, we don't have the brand recognition. So we would meet with new people, new IT directors. We'd go in Charlotte and meet with them face to face and get to know them and build a relationship with them, right? And then us and our brand would tie together in their mind, right?
Yep.
Well, now doing things virtually, right? Whether they're on video or they're not, or we're talking on the phone, that was difficult, right? Because it was harder to get our name out there, so to speak. So we relied a lot on prior relationships that we had,
Yep.
to kind of push us through. So our new logos weren't as high, right? We weren't bringing on as many net new customers. There was still a decent amount. Our customers that we'd worked with for years at prior would say, hey, Brice helped me with this. He can help you. So we were getting some referral business, but kind of that cold call, cold email, like new relationship was a lot harder for
Mm.
sure.
So
So
out of that, I'm curious because I mean, obviously, then you had to adapt then your sales strategy around that, and how has that impacted, now post COVID, what you do from a B2B sales standpoint that other businesses maybe can learn from the way that you guys have refined your sales
yeah,
processes right now? Yeah. So what does that look like, and any
so
advice there?
for sure, we built a lot of collateral that we didn't have before because we had to
Hmm.
share our message in a more visual way over video call. So we're sharing screens, we're walking through things. So we're building up a lot of this collateral, and we kind of looked at each other and said, is this hybrid environment here to stay?
Yeah.
Or are we eventually going to be back in people's offices, back having lunches, back doing these things? And we made the bet that we weren't, and that remote work was here to stay, and we'd be on Teams and Zoom for a while.
Yep.
We were right.
Good bet. Yeah.
And so we built our business and our sales around selling remotely. Um, Not a huge shift, right? But making sure we have collateral, making sure that we can connect with people over Teams and Zoom, making sure that we set etiquette standards, right? Like we had a sales team, right? And saying, hey, be on video, make sure, what do you need to have a successful call, right? Do we need custom cameras on people's laptops? Do we need, headsets? What do we need to have the best possible remote selling experience possible? And we made those investments.
Hmm.
Um, and I think those have paid off. We're now back meeting people face to face, but a lot of people say, hey, I'm busy, right? So let's meet over Teams, let's meet over Zoom.
Yeah.
And we've I would say we've had as much success by taking those steps early to mid COVID to kind of continue that trend of video calls, um, that we've sold as much as we would have sold if,
Yeah.
hey, we are meeting in the office, hey, we are doing these things. Because there is, there's a drive time component. I mean,
Totally.
an in-person meeting might last a lot longer. It might not just go 30 minutes. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. And I was
yeah,
going to say, like, I find that a lot of the things that we started doing in COVID, well, just like you guys, from a B2B sales standpoint, we've kept a lot of it because a lot of our prospects actually are asking for that. Like before, to get somebody on a video call to pitch them something was almost impossible, right?
right.
And it had to be done in a boardroom or over lunch or whatever. But now it isn't that way. It's very much accepted and in a lot of cases preferred. And so I find that our sales team can be a lot more efficient with their time. And I don't think that they're sacrificing a lot on the effectiveness side of things, like in
Yeah,
terms of like the close rates and stuff. And so you guys, it sounds like are experiencing a very similar thing too, eh?
absolutely. Yeah. And I would agree with you. I think we've done substantial business over video calls. We've done substantial business with people that we've never met in person,
Yeah.
right? And we bet that this was here to stay, and I think it is. But I also think that you can connect with another human being more face to face.
Yeah. Agreed.
That's just our nature, right?
Yeah.
But business can be done substantially over, digital mediums.
Yeah, yeah, completely. I'm curious because of what you were talking about there. In the grass isn't always greener, and so that kind of is a little bit alludes to the challenges of entrepreneurship and starting a business and everything else. And so, from your personal perspective,
Yeah.
what do you think is the most difficult in terms of that entrepreneurial lifestyle, that one has? We, like you were talking about before, we glorify entrepreneurs and the lifestyle oftentimes, and so on. We focus on, the things that are really attractive about it, but there's also, the not so attractive elements to it. So,
Yeah.
can you share with me what makes,
Sure.
the entrepreneurship or entrepreneurial lifestyle so difficult?
Yeah. You know, it's very glorified, right? I think most founders, they beat their chest and say the best decision, absolute best decision I've ever made.
Yeah.
And I tend to agree, right? I'm very happy with where Opkalla is now.
Yeah.
But again, back to, if you're in a good position, if you're making good money, if you're happy, if you have a good team that you enjoy and you have good leadership, there's something to that, right? Obviously, owning equity in a company is a great way to gain wealth, right? Wealth creation in this country a lot of times comes from, equity markets, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
come from capital markets where, hey, I'm paid X number for a job, and it's equity gains value. That's how you get wealthy. So, but really, like, when I look at my life, like, you know, my life goal isn't being as rich as I possibly can, right? I want freedom, which requires a certain amount of money. But I think people really need to know, really need to think about, what is it you want in your life, right? What is it that you want to achieve? And if you want to be a billionaire, yeah, I mean, you're going to have to venture out and go down some entrepreneurial background. But if you say, hey, I want to make a good amount of money, but there's also some other things I want to do, right? There's some other, I want to, have safety and security for my family. I want to do these. You can work at organizations and make substantial amounts of money
Yeah.
and have a lot of freedom. You won't be a billionaire, right? Unless you hold some sort of equity position. So yes, I would do it again. I was unhappy at my previous company. There were some things with the leadership team that I didn't necessarily agree with. I wanted to venture down some roads that they didn't want to.
Hmm.
But I guess what I'm saying is, if the grass is always greener, let's say I was very happy and I had a great leadership team, and I had, I was, had goals that weren't all about money. There were some things I wanted to do. Maybe it's not, because there's sacrifices, right? I mean, this, every entrepreneur knows this, right? Like,
Yep.
I mean, I'm 4 years into this. I'm still making sacrifices. I can't,
Yep.
do certain things. I have to be certain places at certain times. But just really think about, what do you want to achieve in your life, and then decide if entrepreneurship is potentially required for you to achieve those goals, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And if it's not, then maybe it's not the right fit.
Yeah, yeah, and you'd mentioned to me that you have hundreds of clients now at this stage, and it's so funny. Like, a lot of people, when they think about entrepreneurship, it's like, you're working for yourself. You don't have to report to anybody, and so on.
Yeah,
And the reality of it is you're actually reporting to those hundreds of clients. You now have hundreds of bosses that you're trying to please as well, and so
for sure.
yeah, it's a different perspective that we have from that glorification to really what the reality of it is. And so I really like that balanced approach that you're like, you know what, it's not always as green there. I'm
Yeah.
curious, after 4 years and the growth that you guys have had, and I think you were saying you're up to, what was it? Yeah, 15, 16 employees. You're in the tens of millions of dollars in terms of revenue, and so you guys have really carved out a great business within those 4 years. What's easier now at this stage in your business that wasn't as easy, say, a couple years ago?
Yeah. Um, Solving business problems. We have
Yeah.
teams that
Yeah.
can, take initiatives and run with them. And um, so uh, we have an entire operations team that's incredible. They support our sales team. And if there's things within the business, Steve Ermish, our COO, leads that team. And if there's a problem to be solved, that team solves it,
Mm.
and they're amazing at it. And we wouldn't be anywhere close revenue wise if it wasn't for them. So that investing in that team early, bringing Steve on as a partner, um, knowing we'll need that as we go, it's helped us get into that, 8-figure revenue range and continue forward, because we don't have to stop selling to solve business problems. So that's the one thing that's definitely gotten easier. I'd say our brand has grown, especially locally. I mean, we do
Mm.
business in 38 states. Um, we get referrals, we get inbound leads. So the for us to talk to an IT decision maker has gotten easier. Um, they've either heard of us, or we have, better marketing collateral, et cetera,
Yep.
to do that. Um, we we had never been C-level board meetings, right? We've never had. I was a sales leader at my previous company, and we had sales meetings, but never like, hey, how do we have a board meeting, right? Like, how do we make these decisions? So we invested. We read the book Traction, all of us did, and
Yeah.
we implemented EOS on our executive leadership team. So it's so much. The meetings are so much better, and it's not this, somebody's got a problem, we all talk about it, what's next. It's never this like checklist, right? We follow this methodology, right? And we get way more accomplished in, executive meetings and board meetings
Yeah.
and different things like that. So that, you know, the high level decisions and talking through issues has gotten night and day easier
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, creating those systems, right, where you can manage and grow the business is so critical, and that's one of the things that it took, I think, me quite a bit longer than what it sounds like it took you guys to really sort out. Because as the company's growing so rapidly, you're just in that mode of trying to deal with the growth and the operational challenges that are coming with it. And so sometimes it's really hard to step back and go, okay, wait a minute, are our systems set up for success here? Or is it actually a breakdown in systems that's creating all the extra stress and operational failures, right? And so yeah, that's such a key part of it. And I love that you guys have tackled that early on and really figured that out, because I think that is going to be a massive influence in where you're going to be at in the next 4 years. And I mean, obviously those systems are going to have to evolve because you're going to continue to grow at a very rapid pace, but it's that base, the groundwork that you guys have done, which is going
Yeah.
to really help you get there. Yeah.
And another piece of advice, again, the theme around a lot of what I'm saying is self-reflection, right? So I mentioned working hard. Am I really working hard?
Yeah.
Self-reflection. There's a
Yeah.
lot of reflection in, man, we're having bad meetings. Like these are unproductive. How do we fix that, right? How do
Yeah.
we make these things better? So as an entrepreneur, as a business leader, well, we've always done it this way. So what? Is it working? Could it be better? Be introspective, look at everything you're doing, and don't be afraid to change and do something differently.
Totally. Yeah. One last question for you.
Yeah, yeah.
If you could, turn the time backwards or send yourself a letter, your younger self, your younger entrepreneurial self, 4 years ago, what would you include in that letter? What kind of advice would you be giving your younger entrepreneurial self?
Yeah, so it's only 4 years ago, so I wasn't that much younger, but
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, a lot
I'd
has happened
say,
in 4 years, right?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would have told myself, talk to more people who have done it, get
Mm.
advice. When we started, it was okay, I was making very good money, now I'm making zero, go sell, right? It was black and white. It was okay, I'm gonna go find I'm going to add value. I'm going to talk with customers. I'm going to get them to, I'm going to solve their problems. I think if I had taken a step back and said, let me find some other company leaders, I always thought like, okay, we're going into this space and we're competition to some of these people,
Hmm.
and they might, it's kind of a dog eat dog world kind of, but it's really not. I mean, we talk to business leaders all the time, and they're like completely open with advice,
Yeah.
right? So, and we knew some people that had companies, so I would have called them, told my younger self, hey, call them, ask for help, see how they do things, find people who've done it and that are successful, and get advice, potentially get some mentorship, right? Um, I think I would have taken a step back, and maybe we could have moved pretty fast, but maybe we could have moved, even faster if we knew what success looked like, and we didn't make as many mistakes, along the way, which
Yeah.
we made plenty for sure.
Yeah. No, I think that's really good advice to yourself for sure. And that's something that all of us can at all the different stages, because what I find too is that, the road to that first million is it takes a different kind of advice that you're going to need there to then to get to the next, the to the 8 digits, and then to the 9 digits, and so on, right? And so you need to be talking to a group of people who have done that before, because the challenges are different, the advice
Yes,
is going to be different, and
absolutely.
yeah, so that's a really good one. Yeah, thank you for that. So Brice, I really appreciate you taking the time today to share your story, and hopefully inspire some entrepreneurs to venture down the road that you guys have gone. And if somebody wanted to connect with you, just to connect or to learn more about what you guys can do for their businesses, what would be the best way for them to do so?
Absolutely. Yeah. Best way, you can go to our website, Opkalla, Opkalla.com. We've got a chat feature. If it's just a quick question, we can absolutely help there.
Yeah.
There's a number there you can dial as well. My email, brice.ulrey@opkalla.com. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very active there. Happy to help, talk through with other entrepreneurs. When back to the question, me giving advice, right? I'm here. I'll tell everybody how things go here, and how I can help in any way possible. So
Awesome.
um, feel free to reach out, whether it's for IT solutions or just for advice in general, or just to learn more about us or our company.
Very cool. Well, thank you
Yeah,
for that offer to everybody, and being part of this, community of entrepreneurs who are willing to help other entrepreneurs, and share some of that advice along the way, because we all need it for sure, and we all
absolutely.
benefit. So thank you again. And
Welcome.
if you enjoyed this episode, if you're listening to it right now and you want to check out the other episodes that we've done in the past, there's now around 220 or so in the archives. You can head over to amplifyyourbusiness.ca to find all those past interviews. And then, of course, if you are listening to us, visually through YouTube and you want to just listen to the audio only version, we're available on all the podcasting platforms out there too. Just search Amplify Your Business, and you're going to be able to find us there as well. So until next time, everybody have a prosperous day. And thank you once again, Brice. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.